совсем задушен, физически уничтожен. Не нужен, совсем не нужен. При жизни я был ничтожен извне, а я как ты, как все они. И что теперь извне, а я как ты, как все они. И верь, не верь, мы вместе, мы где-то вместе, мы бесполезны, пустое слово. Ай, люди на Красной Пресне зачем-то шли насмерть снова. Извне, а я как ты, как все они. Да что теперь? Извне, а я как ты, как все.
You are listening to This Week in Clown World with Ben and Hobbs, so sit back, relax, take your black pill, and enjoy the show.
Well, howdy, hey, friends. It's This Week in Clown World with Ben and Hobbs. He's Ben. I'm Hobbs. And I don't know who that was in the background, but hi to you too, pal.
Yeah, I gotta apologize for any pet-related mischief. My wife is still at the gym or her boyfriend's house or something, and the pets are just going ape shit out there. I moved up here. I moved out of the bomb shelter because it got so fucking cold down there this winter, and I can't isolate myself from them. And I would let her in here, but she's just a horrible pet. Hopefully that goes away.
Sounds like kitties in heat.
No, she's obsessed with me. So yeah, kind of.
No.
But anyways.
Well, you're a handsome goddamn man, Ben. Even the kitties can't resist you.
It's the beard.
Yeah. I'd say save some pussy for the rest of us.
I don't know. If she keeps meowing, I'll get up and let her in. We'll see how that goes. But anyways, how's your week in Clown World?
It's been a pretty eventful last couple of weeks. There's all this stuff that happened that keeps for us to talk about, and then like usual, we get on here and my brain just decides to go.
I mean, where you had the banks.
Mm-hmm. Yep. The bank thing.
And everybody was saying, it's going to be a complete banking meltdown. Nothing happened.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So this is something that I followed it for a little bit because it was one of those stories that had the potential to go absolutely thermonuclear, and it didn't, precisely because our government has just become so accustomed to kicking the can down the road in perpetuity.
Mm-hmm.
Which is what they did again. On the more kind of terrifying side of things, in a way, they've somewhat nationalized the banks now.
I saw that said, but I didn't really understand it. Did you understand why that is now? It had something to do with the loans they're giving them, or?
It's FDIC. Okay, so FDIC, the Federal Deposits Insurance scheme that they.
She's got her note. We're just gonna hold on. Sorry, this is very unprofessional. Get in here.
Yes,
It is what it is.
It is. Right. So, anyways, it has to do with the FDIC, which is any deposits in the United States are insured up to $250,000.
Right.
And the reason for that is that most people aren't going to have $250,000 in a bank account, and the people who do have $250,000 in their bank account are typically going to be the investor types or the business types or anything like that are going to be watching their money in order to not have the risk of needing FDIC. So it was being only insured up to $250,000 was somewhat like a circuit breaker to keep the people with the big money in the banks from being reckless with their banks. Because if you got like $6 million in a bank account and the bank gets robbed or the bank goes under or something like that, and you're only insured up to $250,000, well, you took $5 3/4 million haircut, and that's your fault because
Yeah.
you should have known better. So what happened is that this SVB, this Silicon Valley Bank that went under, 97% of the deposits made in that bank were over the $250,000 FDIC limit. So when Joe Biden said, we'll just insure these guys anyways from the federal coffers, essentially what he's done is he's telegraphed to every other bank that they can be as reckless as they want with other people's money. The government will swoop in to cover any losses that they might incur, thus, in essence, nationalizing the banks.
How about paying fucking overdraft fees for everybody? I mean, maybe do that for a month instead.
Yeah, it's a real shitty deal the way that they're doing things. Because why is this bank special? Was the question that people asked before they got to asking, or not asking, but coming to the conclusion that they've essentially nationalized the banks.
Right.
Because Signature Bank went under, and a couple other banks are like teetering on a knife's edge right now about going under. Like, well, are you going to insure all of them? Is Silicon Valley Bank just special because, as one MSNBC financial expert put it, it's the Democrat piggy bank or the Democrat ATM bank?
Well, it kind of seems like a really complex money laundering scheme to get money to the Democrats when you consider all these tech firms have been laying people off. I mean, Facebook laid off 10,000 people, and there was multiple reports from people working there that they were just there. They were being paid. They had nothing to do.
Yeah.
This is leftist progressive areas, and they've just been funneling money into these people, and where it's going to end up.
Yeah, and those people have been funneling money. Yeah, you're right. It is a money laundering scheme. You have a bunch of left-wing activists on the payroll,
mm-hmm.
and each individual person is only allowed to give, like $5,200 a year to certain causes.
But I saw some chick, she was Hispanic, and she says like they were collecting Pokemon cards because they were just trying to get every type of minority and group into Facebook.
Yeah, that's one part of it. But when you said a money laundering scheme, I don't know if it was the same place that you were coming from, but it's like each individual person and each individual corporation can only give so much money to a candidate or to a political party. But if you have 50,000 employees and you're paying them all six-figure salaries and they all have the same political view,
to do sit around.
Now they're making a ridiculous amount of money, and each one of those individual people can give that $5,200 cap to a political party or a political. So yeah, it is, in a way, it's kind of a really sneaky, sly end run around FTC or not.
Yeah,
FTC,
I mean, it's like they're just creating a progressive farm. They're and I can't think of how you could have that same situation for a conservative type organization. You know what I mean? I can't think of anything where that would work. You couldn't have some bullshit company and have a whole roster of boog boys and whatnot and just funnel money to them to give to. There's nothing that'd work for it. Only work if you're on the East or West Coast running some bullshit tech company or bank.
Yeah, it's like they operate with a hive mind. There's no memo that goes out being like, okay, everybody gets their Christmas bonus, and oh, by the way, did you know that the election commission says you can give up to $5,200 a year to a candidate of your choice? Be wise with it, but we know what you'll.
It'd be like if there's some bullshit gun company that didn't actually produce any guns, but they just hired a whole shitload of like-minded people to work there. Or is that Black Rifle Coffee? Or
with the expectation that those people are going to donate large sums of money to a certain political party or candidate. Yeah, it's shitty. And the shittier thing is that it's not entirely the bank's fault. Like,
no,
most things, this kind of stems back up towards the government. And oh, hi, kitty.
This is the cat episode, I guess.
Yeah, I need to get one.
No, you don't. Trust me.
Well, we got
Anyway.
3 here. I just
Oh,
need to
okay.
find one. But yeah, so so anyways, the way that this happened. Now, I've seen a lot of like conservative commentators talking about all of the diversity, equity, and inclusion
Right.
bullshit that this bank was leaning heavily into, and that has nothing to do with what happened when they crashed. So what happened was that years ago, when the interest rates were zero or damn near zero, they didn't have a whole lot to invest their customers' money into because they couldn't. My mom just brought me a cat. But so anyways, they didn't have a whole lot to invest their money into. So what they did was they bought long-term treasury bonds, which were at the time the interest rate on them were only like 0.7%, and they had a 10-year maturity. But traditionally, a treasury bond is the safest investment you can make. It's not going to have a whole lot of return, but it is going to be safe for your money. Well, in COVID happens, government spending jacks up, inflation goes through the roof. The government tells the Fed that we got to get this inflation under control. You get inflation under control by jacking up your interest rates. And now with jacked up insurance rates or the jacked up interest rates, those long-term bonds were suddenly worth a lot less.
Mm-hmm.
In addition to that, the Treasury started issuing 2-year bonds at something like 5.7% interest rates. So what the bank decided to do,
and their money's tied up in all these.
Right.
Yeah, if you cash them out early, you take a penalty.
Exactly. So they're like, well, we've got these 10 years bonds that aren't going to mature for like, another 7 or 8 years. And the government is dumping these 2-year high interest rate bonds out that are effectively making the bonds that we've already invested in next to worthless. So what they did without telling anybody, and this is where they fucked up, but what they did without telling anybody is they were going to sell the 10-year bonds for a slight loss, like a 10% loss. And then they were going to turn around and purchase the 2-year bonds. And once the 2-year bonds matured, they would make up the loss that they had sold the 10-year bonds for, plus a little bit extra on top of it. So it was the smart financial move to make, all things considered. But they didn't tell anyone that they were doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Someone noticed and freaked out, and social media being what it is, it incited a bank run where everybody went in to try and get their cash. Now, thanks to the magical, mythical wonders of fractional reserve banking, the bank might have had $60 billion in assets on their sheets, but they only had $6 billion in assets actually on hand. And so when these people came in to cash out all of their money, they took that 10% that they had and left everybody else high and dry, which caused the bank to collapse because everybody else was like, oh, they're making bad financial decisions and we can't afford to prop them back up anymore.
I mean, they were a little bit bad. I mean, why would they think that the bond rate would stay that low forever? I mean, that was pretty stupid.
Well, it was either buy the 10-year bonds or not invest the customer's money at all. It was either a 0.7% interest rate or a 0% interest rate. And if you tell your customers that, oh, we're just going to wait until the Fed decides that they're going to arbitrarily jack up interest rates, your customers are going to go, I'm going to go to a different bank that's going to get me something rather than you guys just sitting on your hands.
Yeah. And I think the problem is there was so many people with such a large amount of money putting it in one bank.
Mm-hmm. That was part of it.
and it wasn't spread out. And I don't know what the deal was with the Signature Bank in New York. I think it was kind of the same. Wasn't it kind of the same thing? They had crypto money instead of startup
Yeah.
money, or
It was the same thing. It was just a knock-on effect. People saw what was happening at one bank and extrapolated it out to other banks, and it almost caused a chain reaction until the government came in and said that they were going to insure all of the deposits at these banks, and that put the kibosh on it. Which, as a libertarian, government bailouts of private institutions making bad decisions, even if they are bad decisions brought on by bad government policy, is never a very good thing doctrinally. Practically speaking, though, the government coming in and bailing out these small regional banks stopped a cascading failure of everybody withdrawing their money from the small regional banks and shifting it over into the big four banks, JP Morgan, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, and I'm
or
blanking
Chase.
on Chase. Yeah. So in essence, big government stopped big bank, even if it was by accident.
Well, and it wasn't like they were. Isn't there something weird? They're not insuring them above the amount. They're letting the banks have loans to buy government bonds. Isn't that what it worked out?
Maybe. I'm not 100% sure. I haven't heard that.
But and then Credit Suisse was going tits up too. I saw, but they've been making shitty decisions for years.
Yeah. I think that what happened after all is said and done, and you can kind of step back and take the 30,000-foot view of it, what happened was the least bad of several bad options.
Mhm.
I mean, it was still bad, but it could have been a whole lot worse. It could have been like a complete market crash like 1929, or it could have been monopolization or at least cartelization of the entire banking system under a couple of different companies.
Yeah, I think what you talked about is what we would have looked at. The four big banks would have came out on top in that one.
They did make a shitload of money, though.
Oh,
a lot of
whoever
people,
buys SVB is going to make a shitload of money too. Get the
it's not just that though, but a lot of people did take their money out of small regional banks, not just SVB, but small regional banks around the country, and shifted it over to the big four, because the big four, what they call a structurally integral bank or something, some acronym that they use.
A too big to fail bank, pretty much.
Exactly. Yeah, it's something they came up with after the 08 crash, that they've got these huge banks that they cannot allow to fail under any circumstances.
Yeah, I didn't think. I mean, everybody. If you looked online, they were like, "Oh, the whole banking system," and it's like, there's no way they'll let that whole system come down.
Not until they get their central bank digital currency in place,
right.
Which is really what this is all going towards.
I mean, it seems like we always have a half-ass meltdown and then nothing can happen again. I mean, 08 was probably your biggest chance of having a complete banking system meltdown. And, there's enough in place that that'll probably never happen again. And, like
unless
I say,
they want it to.
Unless they want it to. January 6th is probably your best chance to ever have an overthrow of the government. They'll never let that happen again.
Unless they want to.
Unless they want it to. This fucking cat. So, yeah, I mean, that's where we're at anymore. Everything's just been done half-assed. The government stepped in and taken control of stuff, and now it'll only happen if they want it to.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Kind of like World War III.
Yeah, it'll never happen until they want it to. Which that's actually a very nice segue into something that happened. Something happened yesterday.
Yeah, did you see the video?
I did. It was pretty awesome.
Why would you design your jet so it can dump fuel out? I don't.
It's an emergency thing. Yeah, if you need to lose weight, or if your plane's on fire and you need to, dump all your weapons and fuel just to.
I thought it was some weird Russian tactic they were doing where they just able to shoot fuel out and set it on fire and do like a dragon's breath sort of thing.
It would have been cool if they'd set the drone on fire with it, though.
Kicked his afterburner just as soon as he dumped the fuel.
Yeah.
But yeah, I saw the video. He flew by, dumped fuel on it, flew by again, must have smacked it with his wing.
Yeah, I think so. I think the tip of the wing hit the prop on the back and damaged it and caused it to slip right into the drink.
Now, what's the he said situation going on here? What has Russia said the reasoning was?
Because it was like right on their airspace. And I for one am livid that Russia would dare put their airspace next to our drone.
Over the Black Sea?
Yeah. It was technically in international waters, but it was too close for comfort. And of course, you had the normal menagerie of terrible people saying that we've got to like launch the nukes over a robot now or something.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm sure that was peer. I mean, how far is that from what's going on in Ukraine? Was that drone probably something capable to peer into that area and provide support?
Yeah, the general consensus is that it was loitering near enough to Crimea that it might have been able to get critical intel on installations and troop movements within the area.
Well, and I could tell as soon as it happened, you kind of knew they're up to some shady shit by how nonchalant the powers that be were about it. You know, they're like, "Oh, it went down."
It's a Reaper drone. It's not even our most expensive drone. And it was just a surveillance drone. Lindsey Graham was up there being like, "Oh, now we got to start shooting down Russian jets." And it's like, you, sir, are a blood-gargling psychopath.
Yeah, those guys are just itching to start getting into something with Russia still for some reason.
Yeah.
And Ukraine's been, I guess that Bakhmut region's a total shit show right now.
Oh, yeah. Wagner Group has it encircled, and it's like a cat playing.
You know, both sides are, I guess the Ukrainians are sending in senior citizens, and Russia's got female prisoners going there now.
Oh boy, that's a mashup.
Senior citizen males versus Russian females.
Russian female violent prisoners. It'd be like,
I'm gonna go with the Ruskies.
Yeah.
And you know that,
like the orange is the new black type chicks,
right?
Stick an AK in their mouth and a cigarette, or stick an AK in their hands and a cigarette in their mouth, and point them in a general direction.
So yeah, and you know they're saying that area is just pummeled. It's just if you've seen pictures of it, it's just a wasteland. There's nothing worth fighting over there right now.
Mm-hmm. It's there has been nothing worth fighting for in that area for a very long time. It's not strategically important, but it is symbolically important.
Mm-hmm.
For some reason, the Ukrainians want to hold this place. For some reason, the Russians want to take it. I don't know the whole story behind it. I'll have to ask Alex why they're so hot over this place when both sides should just leave it alone.
And you know, it seems like the Russians don't release as much footage. The war footage coming out, it almost seems like it's always Ukrainian. Have you noticed that?
A little bit.
Like the Ukrainian drone footage, it's just shitty. What the next war is going to be like with all these drones that are going to be around.
Yeah.
I mean, I saw one. It was from the Bakhmut region. It was two soldiers, you know, let their guard down for a little bit, fucking around. They're like racing each other on a couple bikes. They found some bikes in the rubble. Here comes a drone bomb out of nowhere. Blam.
Yeah.
You know, one goes down on the bike, and you can see his buddy drags him the side of the road, and he's just sitting there cradling him. And the drone pilot didn't have at least he had enough humanity not to wipe the dude out while he's crying over his friend. You know what I mean? But just stuff like that over and over. Dude's taking a shit. Here comes a drone bomb.
Yeah, I told you, I don't know. Did we talk about it a couple of weeks ago when they were dropping Zyklon B on?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's... Ugh.
Dropping gas on them.
Mm-hmm. Chlorine gas, Zyklon B.
It seems like the only footage that manages to get out of Russia is when it's pinning them for some sort of war crime. So
yeah, because Russia's a professional military and they've got OPSEC, and the Ukrainians are basically untrained militia and they're proud of all of the messed up shit they're doing
Mhm.
because they know that nobody in the West is going to call them on it.
Sorry, this fucking cat. I tell you, this. But
Uh,
yeah, so we had World War III won't start unless they want it to. Banks won't crash unless they want it to.
right.
Um, I mean,
And
they
I got
control.
a sneaking suspicion that the central bank digital currencies aren't quite ready to go, which is why the what happened last week was kind of a flash in the pan as far as SVB. It'll percolate, the bubble will inflate a little bit more, and then we'll have something terrible happen. One of the big four might be at risk of going under, and then just like happened in the 30s, it'll be, oh, this wonderful new way of doing money is going to ensure that there's never going to be a bank run again. It's like, God,
Right.
when have we heard that one before? Shit,
And
100.
that's terrifying. The central digital currency.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's awful because no cash means they can essentially control everything that you buy. And if they don't want you to buy food, you're not going to be able to buy food. It's everything. It's the ultimate control apparatus. They've got it figured out. They know what they need to do. They just need to maneuver things in a way that we won't show up at their houses.
Got your GMO food and your digital currency. Your GMO food that's sterile, so you can't get any seeds from it, and your digital currency, and you're good to go.
Have a bug burger.
Yeah.
You will own nothing and you will like it.
Have a burger with your hormone replacement therapy.
Ugh.
Which,
Yeah,
by
you
the
won't.
way, do you see that? The DHHS admiral or whatever? They're always wearing a uniform.
Yeah.
Did you see what they said? It was like breaking story. Dr. Rachel Levine says changing kids' genders will soon be fully embraced. Wheels will turn on this.
Press X to doubt.
Assistant Secretary for Health and U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Rachel Levine, promised that medically changing kids' gender will soon be normalized.
Well, it ain't for lack of trying. They
No.
are really pushing to normalize that. But here's the secret about normalizing things. If you have to normalize it, it ain't
It's not
normal.
normal. Yeah. Forced normalization isn't normalizing. Black market, go Burr, Edward Black over there. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Especially, if you have to normalize things that ain't normal, especially when it comes with the implicit threat that we will cut off your access to money if you don't go along with it, which is
Oh, yeah. If you got your digital currency and you don't want to say that there are multiple genders or that kids should be chopped up, you can't access your digital currency.
yeah,
Easy as that.
Yeah, pretty much. So you get cash. I'd say get some cash, get some hard assets. Go out and get your fun stuff while you can. Speaking of fun stuff, oh yeah, the item that I finally cyber
For
bullied
those of you
FN
that
into
have
making.
been watching the Observation Guns episode, he mentions it every one.
There it is. I got it today. The FN 545, flat dark Earth, 15 or 18 rounds of 45 ACP.
Coming to a 3D printer near you.
3D printer go. Brrr.
Which that last guest on that you had on, man, that guy made a promising case for guns coming to everybody.
Oh yeah.
I mean, so what? You're shut down digital currency or whatever. You can just print one.
Yeah, other than the metal components, like a rifled barrel, I don't think the 3D printing technology is there yet. There are some homebrew methods for making a rifled barrel. It's not going to be at the quality level of a factory made like button broached or single point or cold hammer forged barrel, but these are those new emerging technologies that just have to mature a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean they've got 3D metal printers. I mean, I'm sure you're aware. It won't be long till those are able to crank one out. I'm sure.
Oh yeah. Yep.
And configurations that you could never want to do or be able to do with a conventional method of making a barrel. I'm sure.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, the entire landscape of mass manufacturing is about to get turned on its head. 200 years ago, something, not necessarily something made out of plastic, but a pistol was the domain of a single guy or like a small shop of artisans cranking out pistols one at a time.
Mm-hmm.
And then we got into the industrial age of manufacturing, where a whole factory was cranking out pistols, identical pistols, hundreds or even thousands a day. And now we're getting into the digital age where we're back to the one guy in a shop making artisanal single batch pistols.
Hence where the word cottage industry came from. It was made in your cottage. Plains Prepper FGC9 has homebrew rifled barrel, which supposedly does 3-inch groups at 25 yards with a 9mm. That's all you need.
It's like an electrochemical method of rifling that I haven't really looked into too deeply, but it can be done. It's just not as high a quality as you might like. Uh-oh. Did we lose Ben? Oh, no. All right. Well, it looks like we lost Ben. Hopefully the rest of you guys are down there in the chat. So what's some other things that happened lately? Like I said at the beginning of the show, my brain took a massive dump, and even though we haven't necessarily done a show on current events topics in the last 2 weeks, a lot happened, and I am just completely blanking out right now. Oh, Ben just sent me a text. Apparently the kitty cat must have knocked something over. Oh, God. All right. Okay, so I'm sorry. I'm not very good at this sort of stuff. So anyways, going back to the banking thing and the central bank digital currencies. So one of the things that we've talked about before on the show is that the Chinese social credit scoring system is something of a prototype for the rest of the world. It was the cat is a government drone. Yes, Ed, the cat is a government drone. Ben, are you back, sir?
I'm back.
Okay. I'm just seeing a black screen, but I think we'll go audio.
I'm getting it up. I'm getting it up there.
There he is.
The cat has figured out that if I don't pay attention to it, there's a light on the computer and it can push it to anger me, and then it gets attention. So
Ed,
it's
Ed says the cat is a government drone, and I think he's right.
So anyways, I heard you were talking about the what was the process they do to make the barrel?
Some type of electrochemical etching.
Oh, okay.
But I started going back over to the banks and the central bank digital currency and how they prototyped all of this in China with the social credit
the Chinese,
scoring.
Yeah. Let's get into China.
Yeah.
Speaking of the manufacturing, our last guy, your last guest talked about China took all the manufacturing, and we're not even able to make the machines to manufacture anymore. We couldn't manufacture if we wanted to because they're all made in China. They're to China specs now. I saw where who was it? Somebody brought their battery factory to the States from China, And when they set up all the machines, the employees couldn't work on them or maintain them because they were built to Chinese hand size. So our big American hands couldn't fit in there to service the machines. So they've gone through all these headaches to bring the manufacturing back to it. They've practically had to redesign everything, and that's where we're at with our manufacturing now. And hopefully this 3D printing, we can avoid that misstep on bringing it back.
Yeah. God, if that isn't an ego stroke, I don't know what is. Big American hands.
Yeah, they showed a video of it, and the Chinese must be a wee people because it could barely fit 4 fingers into where the Chinese guy's hands would go.
That's what she said.
I kept thinking of the shitty walk and big American penis. But
that was a good episode.
I'm sure China, and during COVID, China kind of had a proof of concept on how it would work too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's exactly what it was. It was the social credit system of being able to turn off somebody's access to basic public services based on whether or not they complied or behaved, then be Dutch mercy.
What?
I don't know. But yeah, it was completely prototyped over there, and they started it off over there because that was where they knew they could get away with it.
Right.
Made for child work.
You might not be too wrong there. They're made for Chinese children. They just don't want to say that part.
Yeah.
Somebody in the comments said they're made for child workers, not adults.
Yeah. Sweatshop labor. But yeah, they prototyped it over there because they knew they could get away with it over there while they worked on the rest of us. And I believe that COVID was a part of that plan. If let's not say that it was intentionally released. Let's just go with the lab leak theory for now, because I don't want to get our channel completely nuked off of air. But hypothetically, speculatively, it would not surprise me if it was done intentionally.
Yeah.
Whether by the Chinese government or members of our government, or both, working in concert with one another, working towards a mutual goal.
Yeah, I would put it past the Chinese to do that. China don't give a fuck about anything but China.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, they'd release something on the world like that.
Killing a few 100,000 of their own people in order to cripple the economic powerhouse of the West is a small price to pay.
Well, we've talked about that. What's up with the Chinese heel turn we've had from the Democrats? They were still buddy-buddy with a little bit, but now they're throwing them under their bus for a lot of things.
It's because it looks like Xi Jinping might just be trying to broker a peace deal between Russia and Ukraine, and for some reason, the Democrats want to keep this war going in perpetuity.
Ed Buck just touched back on his Dutch comment. I guess you need to check out the time the Dutch spanked a bunch of samurais with Gucci Portuguese arms in the 1600s. That sounds like a great Wikipedia adventure.
Start clicking blue links and go down the rabbit hole.
But yeah, that didn't really go anywhere though, did it? The China, it was just seemed like a photo op more than anything.
It's for now. I think that he's met with Zelensky and he's met with Putin, and he's trying to bring them both to the bargaining table. Now, whether or not I'm not going to say whether or not. I know it's not for peace. It's to make China look like the big peace bringer.
Anytime China's there, you got to look at how does this benefit China.
Mm-hmm. Even if it's just to bolster their own image in the public mindset of the world. That's what they, the days of the United States being the sole hegemon of the world, the one that says jump and everybody else says how high, are at an end, and China is looking to fill that void. Whereas the people that are running the show in our, the Western part of the world, they don't want a monolithic hegemon calling all of the shots. They are looking forward to the multipolar world
Right. You're
because
talking about Raytheon, Boeing.
them, the WEF, the Great Reset
I mean,
crowd, all
Raytheon,
of them.
Boeing would love for America to just be kind of in the background selling cool shit to everybody so they can duke it out, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yep.
if anybody's come out ahead in this whole Russia-Ukraine thing, it's American arms manufacturers, weapon of war manufacturers, because they make some cool shit. And
China.
Yeah, and China will too, because Russia's military industrial complex has taken a beating in this war. Their equipment hasn't performed as well as they said it should, as from what it seems. So China's got a hole there that they could jump on it and pick up that arms manufacturing.
They could, but I believe that the quality of Chinese weapons of war is probably even lower than Russia's. I think that what China is angling to do now is less about the guns and bullets and tanks side of warfare as much as it is the diplomatic and information side of warfare. They are angling to become the benevolent peacemakers of the world in the public eye, I believe.
Who will follow up your war with low interest loans
and infrastructure projects that you
Yeah.
will never be able to pay off.
That's where they're at. I haven't really seen a lot about where China sits in the drone projects. It seems like the drones have been coming out of Turkey and India, I've seen.
And Iran.
I saw South Africa had some weird cardboard and plywood drone they were selling to Ukraine. Did you see that?
No. That's
Yeah.
That's a bit of a Uno reverse card that South Africa's selling arms to embargoed countries instead of the other way around.
It came in about the size of all the parts came in about the size of a couple pizza boxes stacked on. Maybe I got the wrong country if somebody saw this, but a couple pizza boxes stacked on the top of each other. You throw an engine on it, fold it out, bolt it together, bam, you got your drone.
It's like an IKEA drone.
Yeah, pretty much.
Sweden's going, God damn it, why didn't we think of this?
And just the fact that we haven't seen hardly any American drones making their way over to Ukraine to be given away tells me that we've probably got some pretty cool fucking drone tech that we're sitting on.
Yeah, and the drones that have been sent over there are sitting at the bottom of the Black Sea.
Yeah. Yeah, they don't want to play that. They don't want that card to be seen yet, is what I'm guessing.
Mm-hmm. And we do. We do have some pretty amazing shit on backup deck. The problem is, do we have the personnel who can actually utilize it?
Right.
And that is a whole other can of worms that this Ukraine war and the general cultural zeitgeist that we find ourselves in has led to massive numbers of experienced troops separating from the military and massive shortcomings in recruiting.
Oh, because they can't match what they can make civilian side. With unemployment being as low as it is too, somebody comes out of the military, they're instantly snatched up.
Yeah, but it's not just an economics measure either. It's also because the people who have traditionally made up the bulk of
they're not
the military, they're not. It's not just that they're not woke; it's that they're actively hated.
Mm-hmm.
When you have an organization that you are being told is for the country that you grew up in, and serving in this organization is the height of patriotic duty, and you get in there and you're having once every 3 months a 2-hour struggle session telling you that you're a piece of shit for existing. Yeah, I wouldn't want to go through that either.
Well, it all ties back to what I've said. The greatest thing the progressives ever did was taking over the the education system. I mean, what are all your leadership in the military? They've been through 4 years of college at least. So
Mhm.
they've been to some sort of institution where they get a little bit of progressive brainwashing, and then they're ending up as your military leadership.
Unfortunately, and even the lower enlisted guys have gone through 13 years of compulsory public school and just don't know
Yeah,
any better. But
yeah,
but even then, the United States is still 65%, give or take, white, and half of them are white men. But the white Anglo-Saxon Protestant male has made up the overwhelming bulk. Usually, people from like the deep South, the old Confederate states, the Midwest, and the Great Plains make up the overwhelming bulk of the U.S.
except
military.
the Navy, I found out.
Really?
Yeah, white people are like 49.8% of the Navy.
Huh?
But a bulk of the Navy's recruiting efforts come from where?
Pacific
The
Island nations.
the coasts.
Of the coasts,
Yeah,
yes.
so that's your progressive strongholds.
And there you go.
Yep.
So when you're actively being told that you are less than
Hmm.
simply for existing, you're going to leave. And that's precisely why I left in 2012. I was hearing this. I can't imagine what young soldiers are going through nowadays.
Yeah. The Army's been hit really hard with their bullshit. That's because that's your southern waspy. That's where most of them end up, is the Army, Marines,
Hmm.
um, Air Force. Air Force. We won't talk about. I don't know. I don't know Air Force demographics.
Hot chicks and effeminate men,
Yeah.
and
Wake up, bro. It's a psyop.
yeah, upper middle class suburban whites. No, but the the army has recently done a bit of a heel turn in their recruiting because they've
They changed
noticed.
their slogan.
Yeah, but they've also kind of pivoted away from the diversity, equity, and inclusion recruiting, and they've somewhat shifted back towards meritocracy and um, I don't want to say volunteerism because it is all volunteer army, but like instead of actively going after minority groups or sexual minority groups or women or whatever, they're like, it's here, join if you want, type
Whose
of
ad
thing.
campaign was that? That's what they were doing? Was that Army?
The Sally has two moms.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the army,
Okay. And
and they got dragged for it.
yeah, I noticed they're back to be all you can be again. I think that was even before I went in. I think it was Army of One when I went in.
Yeah, I went in the Army of One days, like right at the Army of One days. I got a bag somewhere that was a leftover be all you can be bag when I first enlisted. But yeah, when I went in, it was the Army of One, which was just a stupid slogan.
Yeah.
It's like they do everything they can to break down your individuality and make you part of a team, and they're like, "Oh, Army of One." It's like, what the
Yeah, I
are you?
remember
You are confused, child.
it is nowhere near an Army of One. I mean,
Ugh.
be all you can be. That works, I guess.
Yeah,
I mean, what
yeah.
was it after Army of One?
It was let's see, it was Army of One and then Army Strong.
Army Strong, yeah.
Grr, Army Strong. It's fucking cancer survivor or something.
I mean, Army's got such a bad rep. I mean, we're kind of getting into the weeds, but they've got such a bad rep right now too, with all the murders that happen on their forts. The big
Yep.
green weenies it's fucked too many people, and too many people that people know about it.
Yeah, yeah. Unfortunately, 20 years at war and
Yeah.
ruining an entire generation's worth of some of the best and brightest in your country is going to lead to, especially in the social media age, it's going to lead to the dregs of society.
Thought it was Go Army. That might maybe Go Army. Somebody commented they thought it was Go Army after that.
It was Army Strong, which was stupid.
Ape Stealers. That would have been a better army model. That probably would have worked well.
I think the Marines have that one cornered.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of so many good people in our age bracket did like 10 years or so, and we're like, fuck this.
Mm-hmm.
I can't imagine what upper army leadership is like right now. I know a lot of good people that did 10 or 12 years and said, fuck this, I'm not sticking it out for 10 or 8 more. And who would have been excellent leaders. Yeah.
Hi, it's me.
Would have made excellent upper level leaders, but they just said, fuck it, I'm out.
I would be retiring with my pension this year if I had stayed in.
Yeah.
Which is kind of wild for me to think about. But I do not regret my decision.
I've never talked to same thing. I've never talked to anybody, they'll even say that, oh, I would have got my pension, and they never regret getting out.
Right. I got sick of arguing with the EO Sharp officer every 3 months about how pointless her job was and how much I didn't appreciate being talked down to. And I made her cry one time, but I was already on my way out, so I didn't care.
So yeah, I don't know. I don't have any idea how the Army even fixes a situation they're in. I couldn't imagine trying to tackle that. You had a complete culture change that went the wrong way.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to reverse it. You got to get people to stay in. Nobody's going to stay in the Army and put up with that shit.
Yeah, and you can't just out and out say, you can't have like a general get up in front and give a press conference apologizing for the woke shit, apologizing for letting this stuff, because it's too easy to say something that then gets twisted in our current social media landscape. It's like, oh, white supremacists have taken over the Pentagon. It's like, no, we just realized that purple-haired weirdos can't shoot straight.
Yeah.
And have no desire to. You cannot have a group of people defend a country that they think is fundamentally evil.
Hmm.
And that is what high schools and colleges are turning out now. They're turning out generations of political activists who believe that our country is fundamentally flawed and rotten at its core. And you cannot expect these people to put on a uniform and pick up a gun in its defense. Why would you defend something that you think is evil? You wouldn't.
Yeah. And you're right. It's a generational fuck up. They've got to figure out, I mean, we're just going to have to keep our fingers crossed that no bullshit happens for 15 years until they can change the culture and everything.
Luckily, a generation, militarily speaking, is 15 to 20 years, because that's about how much it takes for somebody to go from the bottom up to the top of the ranks.
Mm-hmm.
We're not going to have to wait 60 or 70 years to turn this around, but it has to start now.
And maybe, going back to the slogan of the 80s is a sign that they realize that. The big brain.
It's definitely a step in the right direction.
Figured it out. Because I know
they went back to the old World War II Greatest Generation dress uniforms, the pinks and greens. Yeah. Like maybe this retrospect is exactly what's needed. You need to take a look at the Greatest Generation. You need to take a look at the people who built the country into what it is, rather than look forward into this weird morass that they're trying to construct for us.
Right. And the other branches don't seem to be having this problem. I mean, they've hit their recruitment goals. Navy has, Air Force has, Marines never have an issue because they never got into the woke bullshit. The Marines have always been the Marines. Maybe a little bit, but.
Yeah, the Marines have had Semper Fidelis as their slogan since they were founded, since 1775. They've had the same dress uniform since like the end of the Civil War, that super sharp black with the red stripes and everything. It has not changed. And the other branches need to take a look at that and realize that some of these traditions, some of these things that have stuck around are worth it.
Yeah.
That they work.
Yeah. And they might be going. I was laughing. Plains Prepper recruiting campaign. All new recruits are eligible for a 1% loan on a Camaro or a Mustang or a Dodge Charger.
Yep. That'll get them in.
But yeah, we're right up on an hour. We kind of got off on bitching about the military.
It's important.
Yeah, it's important. Look around the world. That's going to be your army that would have to fight for us if shit goes down. And it's not going to be the same group of guys that was cracking skulls in Iraq and Afghanistan for the last 20 years.
Nope. I mean, maybe we are kind of looking back at our time and as sort of rose-colored glasses, because every generation of soldiers thinks that the new generation of soldiers are a bunch of pussies and things back in my day were a lot harder and blah. But and that's just the thing that troops do.
Mm-hmm.
But it really is kind of hard to argue that it's not.
Yeah. Then you got a bunch of woke serial killers on your post. You might have a problem.
Yeah. Well, I think that it's not necessarily that they're woke serial killers. It's you've got a bunch of woke perpetual victims and a lot of apex predators willing to victimize them.
Oh yeah.
Because one sees it as a meal ticket and an easy life, and the other one sees it as fish in a barrel.
Yeah, and I say serial killers. I mean, what is it, Fort Hood? You have like multiple unsolved murders a year going on there.
Yeah.
It's like, what in the fuck? Get your shit together, Army.
Yeah, Hood is like a Bermuda Triangle.
I never went there for any training, so thank God.
I never went there either.
But all right, well, thanks for tuning in for Clown World this week. We'll be back again next week. You have any guests coming up?
I need to send an email if I can get them. I don't have one for tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
I'll need to try and send this. Remember to send this email. I'm going to try and get JK Armament, the suppressor manufacturers. They did respond to my Instagram message a couple of days ago and gave me an email address to send. So might get them on. They're the ones that made that really cool shotgun suppressor that me and Ed Black talked about. So.
Yeah. After them, why don't you work on Keltec? They seem like they'd be fun.
Maybe.
Maybe. So we're gonna head out. We might have a gun observations next week, but as always, stay honky.